In this video, you'll build the Discord Web 3.0 blockchain app using Next.js. You'll learn how to set up and run a decentralized database node with Gun.js. We'll use the context API to manage the state inside of React.js. You're also going to add authentication to this app just like all the other apps using MetaMask. Of course, we're going to be using Sanity as our backend database. You're also going to be using GROQ to query this database. And lastly, we're going to deploy this app to the web, you know it, using Vercel. With that said, if you're excited, I'm excited. Now, before we get into it, go ahead and smash that like button. And if you do, here's a picture of a panda. I always got to give you guys something special, okay? Turn that thing blue. Let's keep going. All right, now let's go ahead and demo the Discord app. So check it out. Look at this. It looks just like Discord. And now if I go ahead and change my channels on the side, look at that nice little transition and that bubble effect that happens. It's a nice front end effect. Now I can go to different channels. Also, it requires me to log in and authenticate myself with MetaMask. So let me actually go ahead and log in. Cool. Now that it's allowed me to get in, let me go ahead and start clicking the different channels that are available to me. So I can actually click the build space channel or any other channel that I want. Let's go ahead and send a message. So I can just send a message. There you go. I just said hello. All right. Let's say, hey, what's going on? This is Kazi. Boom. So you can see I can actually send messages. I can send messages inside of different channels. All of this is actually being run on a decentralized node using Gun.js, which is super freaking cool. So our backend is kind of happening in the blockchain. And then we have also our own backend with Sanity, storing our users and the channels on there as well. With that said, if you're excited, here's one cool thing I'm going to tell you. For this video, your instructor is going to be a world-class instructor. His name is Lance, and he's one of our bootcamp instructors at Clever Programmer, teaching the front-end mastery bootcamp. And you know what? If this video doesn't get 1,000 likes, we might go ahead and fire Lance. He might not make it, okay? So his job depends in your hands. This is for Lance, guys. This is not for me anymore. This is for him. With that said, I'm going to send it over to him, and you are going to start building this app right now.
All right, Lance here. Let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to be coding this project today. So what we're going to do first, and let's create our project folder, and let's call it Discord Clone Blockchain. Once that's done, let's head over inside that folder, and let's set up a couple things here. So real quick, I'm going to set up 3 folders. The first one is going to be our client folder, which is where our Next.js app will live. Then I'm going to be setting up our server folder. Followed by that, let's set up the studio folder. Beautiful. Once that's done, I'm going to head over to my VS Code. Beautiful. So once I have all that set up, I'm going to go into the client folder, and let's create our Next.js app. So I'm going to do npx create next app at latest, just like this. Hit enter. Boom. All right, once that's loading, I'm going to leave the client folder and head into the studio folder. Let's go ahead and set up Sanity. All right, so just like before, if you guys watched our Twitter clone video, we're going to go ahead and go to sanity.io/cleverprogrammer, and here are the instructions to set up Sanity. All right, it's important that you guys make sure you have the CLI tool, as well as when you do Sanity init, but make sure you put the code --coupon clever programmer, because you're gonna get a bunch of free stuff provided by Sanity. So make sure you do that. Thank you, Sanity. So I'm gonna go ahead, and since I already installed Sanity, I'm just gonna do Sanity init. Boom. All right, we're setting up a new project. I'm already logged in, so I'm gonna keep the project name the same. I'm gonna say Discord Clone Blockchain. Now it's gonna ask you what kind of project this is, so I'm just gonna say clean project with no predefined schema. We're gonna be making our own. All right, next thing, let's head over to our server folder in the terminal, and let's just set up our server with Yarn. If you guys remember, this is a decentralized chat app, right? It's a Discord clone. We're going to be making a decentralized Discord app, right? So what does that mean? That means all the data from our app is not going to be stored in one centralized place, right? It's going to be set up on an ecosystem of nodes, okay? And these nodes are going to be talking to each other and constantly syncing up data, right? This can model what you guys know as a relational database. This server utilizes Gun.js. I want you to think of Gun.js as a open source Firebase, or we can even call it like a decentralized Dropbox, right? So each node is going to hold a user. It's going to point to another user if we're going to have conversations with them. Then we're going to set up one of the servers here. We're going to set up Kazi's node here. This is going to be our node. I'm going to be calling it the Kazi Gun node. Let's go. We're just going to set up a couple things just like so. So I'm just going to be doing this. And once that's done, our server folder is set up for now. We'll get back to it. The next thing I want you guys to do with me is let's set up Vercel. Okay. Once that's done, if it asks you what directory is your code located, your next app lives in the client. So make sure it points to the client folder. All right. So I'm just going to do a couple things just like this. Do Vercel dev. Boom. So now it's available and ready to go. Let's head over to our localhost 3000. What you're going to see here is a starter Next.js app along with all the pages and everything set up right here, just like so. Let's go over and set up Sanity now. Let's head over to our studio folder. You're gonna notice the schema.js right here. Let's just remove all these comments here and clean it up. So let's create our own schemas. The first thing I'm gonna create is this user schema, right? I'm just gonna paste this right here, boom. So right here we have the name, the wallet address, and the profile image. All of these are the properties of the user that we need to keep track of. All right, and every time we make a schema, I'm just gonna go ahead and import that user schema right here. And every time you guys make a schema, go ahead and put the name of that schema right here. Let's create one more. I'm gonna make the conversations schema, right? So keep in mind that another thing we gotta keep track of and store is any of the conversations you have with users, if it's a personal message like a direct message, or if it's just a group chat. So I'm gonna go ahead and set it up right here like this. As you can see, the important ones of our conversations is the room name, the room ID, the image, and if the conversation is a direct message or if it's not, just like before, add that schema to our schema.js, and there you go. Sanity set up. To start Sanity, just do Sanity start. And if you guys head over to localhost 3333, you're gonna see this nice tool right here to see all the schemas we set up, right? So if I click into users, obviously there's no users yet, but I can go ahead and create one. And all the properties that I set up are here as well. The name, the wallet address that we're gonna tie to a user to log in, and then a nice, beautiful profile image right here. Let's go. And with that, Sanity's all set up. Next thing, guys, let's go ahead and set up our gun node server, right? So I'm going to make a server.js. I'm going to add the type module. And from there, let's go ahead and add express, cores, and obviously Gun.js. Once you added those, I'm going to go import them just like so. Now I'm going to set up express just like this. Okay, cool. Now express is all set up. Now that express is set up, let's go get our gun node up and running. I'm going to be using Heroku to run our gun server. Right, as you can see, I've made one before. Let's go make one together. You can call it Discord gun node like so. All right, so create app. This is simple, guys. Let's just follow the instructions here for Heroku, install the CLI tool, log into Heroku. All right, once that's done, I'm gonna go ahead and create a new Git repository within this folder and run these next few commands. One really important step, guys, right here, let's add a git ignore file, and let's just ignore all the node modules we installed here, because, you know, if we were to push all those node modules, it's gonna be the end of the world. If we were to install all those node modules, right, this project is literally gonna be full to the brim with all the modules we installed. So let's not do that. Let's ignore all the node module files in the git ignore. Once that's done, I'm gonna add all the files, commit them, and then push to Heroku. Cool, now that I'm done with that, I'm just gonna double check and make sure it's deployed with Heroku logs right here. Looks like we're all set up, let's go. One more thing, by the way, we can go over to settings on Heroku node, and we're gonna see this link here in our Discord gun settings. You're gonna see this URL here by the section that says domains. Copy this link, we're gonna be using it for later. Alright, so once you deployed your gun server onto Heroku, let's hop into our Next.js app and go into the index.js right here, right? As you can see with Next.js, it uses modules for CSS, right? Instead of the traditional .css file, we do module.css, right? And that's why you see stuff like styles dot, class name. For us, in home, we're going to create a styles dot wrapper div, right? And here, this is going to contain a couple things. Essentially, it's going to contain our whole app. So after you set up your wrapper div, I'm going to be making a main div, and within the main div, there's going to be a couple things here too. One thing I want to stress is that in the wrapper div, this is where the sidebar component is going to go. And within the main div, which is inside the wrapper, that's where the conversations list and the chat view component is going to go. Right? Obviously, we don't have those components just yet. So let's focus on one of them. The first one I'm going to focus in right now is let's add that sidebar component. So I'm going to be making a components folder, and let's just set up sidebar within that. So sidebar.js component. So there's our sidebar.js component. Now let's head over to index, right? Because every time you make a component, you have to import it right here. So I'm going to say sidebar and just place it like so. Okay, really quick, back in our sidebar.js, I'm going to import anything I might need. So I'm going to import the styles here, any React hooks that I'm going to use later on. And after that, let's go ahead up and set up the CSS module for the sidebar. Now the CSS for the sidebar is just going to be this right here. It's going to be the wrapper. And of course, if you're going to make a CSS for the wrapper, you have to label the div name styles.wrapper. There you go. And if you save this, you can see there's our component, right? It's kind of cut off, but it says sidebar. So after you set up the styling for the sidebar, let's go back into our index.js and write something on our main. I'm just going to say conversation list chat view, just uncomment that. And you'll see this is kind of like the format of it. The sidebar has its own spot and conversation list chat view is on the top right there. And that's because of the CSS right here. Really quickly, I'm going to hop into my global CSS and just insert here. This is going to give us that body background color, and you're going to see it's going to look just like Discord. If you were to open up Discord right now, you'd see that it has this light gray for the conversation list chat view. And on the left where the sidebar is, that's going to be like a darker gray, which is all the CSS you need is going to be right here. Feel free to pause the video if you need to, but let's move forward. So let's just travel with me over to here on the sidebar. And once you're in the sidebar, I'm gonna go ahead and set up my React hooks. All right, so really quickly, that's just gonna be my use router and my use state. So really quickly, if you're not familiar with use router, all that is just a hook from Next.js, right? You can see it's from Next router. All it does is help guide and direct the user to the different pages on our app, right? So if I were to click on my conversation with Kazi, for example, it's gonna click into the URL, the page that holds our chat messages, right? Cool. So I'm going to set up the hooks just like so. And after that, let's create an object. For now, I'll call it dummy channels. And as you can see, it's going to be an array of objects. The idea with the array of objects here is that each object is going to represent a channel, right? If you guys are familiar with Discord, if you look over onto Discord, you see those circles on the sidebar. That is what our dummy channels, quote unquote, are. So I'm going to go ahead and import all the assets I have, right, for each channel, right? I call them avatar 1 through 4. And of course, once you put it into your folder, we got to import each image. So I'm going to import each image right now. Okay. Once that's done, each object in this array is going to represent that channel. So that's why they have an ID, a name, and the avatar that corresponds with it. So let's go ahead and make 4 since I have 4 images, right? And I'm just going to go fix up the properties of each. All right. So for this last one, I'm just going to call it build space. Shout out build space if you're watching this. You can name these channels whatever you want, guys, right? If you want to pretend that you're talking to Elon Musk on Discord, or pretending that you're selling a bunch of NFTs, go for it. It's your project, right? I would encourage you guys to customize this, make it your own, and show us, right? Send it over to Clever Program, right? So I'm going to name this chill, random, and general, and that should be good for now. Obviously, just fix these avatars right here, and let's go. We're going to take that array and set it up and initialize our use state so that when you write the word channels after this point, it's going to be that array of objects. You with me so far? Awesome. So what I want to do next is basically map through that array of objects, and for each channel, I want to create a room avatar component. Right. Obviously, I don't have the room avatar component yet, but let's just go ahead and set up some things first before I make. Okay. For each room avatar, I'm going to be passing down these props right here, which is just going to correspond to, the object of the channel, right? I'm going to be passing down the key, the ID, the avatar, and name. All right. And let's go ahead and make that room avatar component now. Should look a little something like this. And of course, import that component onto our sidebar.js. So if you see on my window right here, for every single object in my array, I'm making a room avatar component. And that's why you see room avatar on the sidebar, right? This isn't very pretty right now, but let's go ahead and use those props that we're passing down. So to do, let's go over to my room avatar component. Also, don't forget to make a room avatar CSS file, right? And this is the styling that you're going to need from it. The wrapper, the room avatar before, the room avatar after, right? And when we hover over it, the image itself, when you hover over the image, all these things, right? Feel free to pause the video and make sure you have all of that CSS if you want it to look just like ours. And from there, once we create the room avatar CSS module, I'm going to go back into room avatar, and in the parentheses, let's go ahead and destructure those props. So if you look, these are the props that I have here, and those are the keys that I want to be destructuring from the props object. So let's get the ID, avatar, the name, boom. So now when I'm in room avatar, I can reference that and get each value of the object that I want, right? And I'm going to be adding the div wrapper that we need right here. If you notice, there's an on click right here, and with the function of change URL, right? We don't have that function just yet, but the idea is that if I click on the profile picture of build space right here, what's going to happen is that it's going to go and open up the chat that I have with build space, right? And not only that, it's going to change the URL up at the top right here to say something along the lines of, channel/build space, right? You're going to see it in a second, but let's just set that up right there, right? And within this wrapper div, right? And you're going to see it just in a second. So real quick, I'm just going to make the change URL function up at the top right here on line 6. And then from there, within the wrapper div, let's put all the necessary things we need and then place those props where I want them. First thing is going to make a div called room avatar, which is going to hold the image of each channel. And there we go. So once that's done, let's go ahead and work on the change URL function. And remember the use router hook that I talked about earlier? Let's go ahead and utilize it, right? So if you look at the top, I am importing use router here as well. And from here, you want to do router.push, right? And something along the lines of this, right? What this does essentially is that, like I said, when I click, we're going to direct the user, right, with the ID, the channel ID that it has, along with the name, right, of the channel, right? So if you take a look, save this, hop on back to my webpage, and you're going to see a bunch of images now. All right, so let me refresh this real quick. So once I load up my page now, you can see all the images are loaded up on the sidebar. It's looking a lot more closer to Discord. Isn't this exciting? Right, so like I said, if I click one of these, right, for example, chill, right, it's the channel, it has the ID and the name, right? I'm doing this by passing down each prop and making each of these room avatar components dynamic. And over here, this is the example with build space. It says channel 4 name build space on my URL. Nice. After the sidebar, let's work on the next component, guys. So the next component I want to make is the conversation list component. So I'm going to write ConversationList.js. Okay. After that's done, let's go ahead and make a ConversationList CSS module. Okay, and in the ConversationList CSS module, we're just gonna copy all of the CSS that I have here. This is gonna have the styling for each conversation list, right? All the elements within. Again, feel free to pause the video if you want to have the same styling as we do. Okay, once you guys set up the conversation list, hop back over to the component itself and let's get ready the imports that we are going to use. All right, like I said, we're going to be adding the imports that we're going to need later, just like before, right? Which is just going to be the styles and any hooks I'm going to use. And then the next thing I'm going to do is import all the assets that I'm going to use as well. All right, and the assets I'm going to use are these icons over here. So I'm going to make an icons folder and put all those icons in that folder. Next thing I want to do is import those assets into our component, and then I'm going to hop over into line 8 and add all the necessary divs that I need. Right, so as you can see, I'm going to add a conversations div, and within that div I'm going to make a conversations list top. Okay, once that's done, go back into your index.js and let's just quickly import that conversation list, and bam, right, you can see that I have an input right here that says a placeholder that says find or start a conversation, and that's going to show up right here to the right of your sidebar right there. It looks just like Discord. They have this little like another sidebar technically with that's going to have the friends, the nitro, and it's going to hold all your direct messages. All right, that's what we're going to be doing right now. Let's make a conversations container, and this container is going to hold all of those assets that I was talking about, right? So it's going to be that friends image SVG and also that nitro SVG. So I'm going to insert those images right here, right? And I'm going to set up my image with these properties that I have here, give it this height and width, and there you go. All right, when I hit save, if you look over here, I'm just going to draw it over here. You can see those two images. There's the right here, and there's the nitro one right over here. Boom. So the only thing that's left now is to add the little text that mentions those things, friends, nitro. Okay, after that, let's go ahead and work on the direct messages section. So to do that, let's make a div. Let's write direct messages. And the idea with this div, it's going to contain any of the direct messages that I have ongoing, right? So the idea here is, remember the dummies channel, the array of objects that I made? We're going to do something super similar, right? You can essentially just copy it over, right? And instead of channels, right, I'm going to call this DMs, dummy DMs, right? And instead of room IDs, right, since this is DMs, you can just leave it this as ID. And obviously we're not going to change the room name to just name because this is a personal message between two users, right? And go ahead and change the actual values of those names. So I'm going to put my team. We got Kazi, we got David, and of course we got Frankie. So shout out to Team CP. Okay, cool. So once you guys set up that object, I'm going to go ahead and come down here and I'm going to map through that array of objects once again. All right, and the idea here is for every DM, we're going to make a DM card component. Oh, and really quickly, one thing I forgot to do was each DM is going to have an avatar associated with it. So let's just use the same avatars imported from the sidebar, and I'm just going to paste them onto here. Nice. Okay, cool. So now the images should work. One more thing I have to do is set up my useState hook, right? And again, with the useState hook, go ahead and inside the parentheses of the useState, put dummy DMs. Okay. Once you do that, every time I see the word DMs, that's gonna hold the array of objects. So now we can actually map through that array since it's an array method. And from there, you can set it up just like so. So for every DM, like I said before, let's make a DM, which I'm gonna set up real quick right here, and bam, there we go. All right. And for every DM card, let's put in these props, right? It's gonna have passed down the name, the ID, the avatar. And one thing I want to point out real quick is that each time you map through an array of objects, be sure to include this index parameter that I have, right? Okay? And that's going to be the key, right? In React, each of these elements here need a key to go along with it. So that's going to help React render all those components, right? So I'm just going to set it up, key equals index. Okay, cool. Now that that's done, let's just set up the styling for our DM card. And it should look something like this, right? It's gonna be the class DM card, status, when you some nice styling to when you hover over it, the container, right? Some opacity for the name, a status, all that nice stuff. Go ahead and copy it like so. All right, now that we got the style, let's go ahead and set up the divs that we need for the DM card. Cool. So this DM card, it's gonna have the same thing as before. When we click it, direct us to a unique dynamic page route with, you know, the user's ID and the name in the URL. Basically the same thing as the sidebar. It's going to be a lot of the same code, guys, so I'm just going to do that right now. Don't forget to put any of the imports you need, like the styles, and of course destructure the props that you pass down from DM card. So what that looks like is name, status, avatar, and ID. Awesome. Right, the image component right here is just going to take all the destructured props that I need, right? The height 48 and the width of 48. Cool. And if I save, you can see it right there on direct messages, right? So the next thing I need to do is we need the names that associate with these direct messages. So I'm just going to put another div for the status and another p tag right here to put the names. So there it is. There's my team. They're right there in my direct messages. I can send them a message right now if I wanted to. All right, cool. Let's move forward to the next thing. Okay guys, before I move on, I want to just fix up a couple of styling things right here. So do you see over here in my conversation list, I have some CSS variables, right? I kind of just want to change them to the color right here. So what I want to do is really quickly fix up some things. So I want to head over to ConversationList CSS module and just change the background color of the conversations div and the conversation list top to this one right here. Awesome. Next thing I want to do is I want to grab the hover color from here, right? And just copy that and change that variable of the elements container hover to this one. Beautiful. Next thing I want to do is grab this color, this nice deep gray and change the background of the body to that deep, right? And the font size, the ones over here. Basically, I'm going to be copying a lot of things from the root and changing a lot of the CSS variables back to this. Awesome. So that looks like it's done. No more CSS variables right there. And we should be good to go. So let's move on to the next part. Cool. So the next thing we want to do is create this final component in index, right? I have it set up before. It was the chat view. So let's write chat view.js, set it up real quick like so. I'm going to go ahead and create a chat view CSS file. And I'm just going to include these styles right here. Right, just chat view and message container. Cool. Now that I have those styles, right, we can go back into the chat view component and actually add those divs. Okay, awesome. One thing I want to do is set up another component here actually called chat header, right? If you look at the Discord app that I have, right, there's going to be, well, there should be a header up here that's going to hold all of those other icons that we added to our assets folder, as well as the connect our wallet, which is essentially going to be how we're going to authenticate our user. So I'm going to quickly import all of those assets and icons into my chat header. And then I'm just going to include the chat header CSS file now. For the chat header, there's a couple things that I want to put here. It's just going to be a bunch of styling like so. Awesome, right? We have the header itself, the room name container, the styling of the SVGs, title, the button styling, and much more. So be sure to take a look at all of this. Pause the video if you need to. Let's just jump right into the next part. Okay, so of course we made the chat header component, but let's also not forget to import this chat header right into chat view. Back over to chat header component, and I'm just gonna add the room name div, right? And here it's gonna include an image along with this h3 that's gonna tell us the room name, right? For now, we're gonna make it static. I'm just gonna call it room name. Eventually we'll make this a little bit more dynamic to the user that we clicked. Look at that. There's our room name. Like I said before, it's going to be static for now, but depending on who I click, that room name should change to the person I click. So if I go ahead and click David, right, that room name, if I point an arrow right here, should now be David. But for now, let's leave it static and let's work on the rest of this component. All right, so right now, if you guys remember, we're going to be using MetaMask to connect our wallet to this Discord clone, right? That's essentially what we're going to use to authenticate the user, make this feel really Web 3.0. First thing we want to do is set up the div for the wallet button, create the button styling itself, right? And when I click it, it should run a connect wallet function, which I'll set up much later. And if you see what I wrote here, I wrote const dummy account, as well as I imported the ETH logo, right? So the idea here is when I make this variable called dummy account, the equivalent of me logging in, and that's my wallet address. For now, we have a static one, right? And what I want to do in this line right here is essentially set up some conditional rendering that if I have an account, right, then we can load and change the HTML to show wallet address with that ETH logo that I imported, right? And it should look a little something like this. All right, but real quick, let me just fix up the name of dummy account back into current account to keep it the same. Const current account, change both of these right here. And now take a look at that. Wow. All right, so whenever I do connect my wallet, the HTML and CSS will change to this specific thing right here. So it looks like we logged. It's looking good so far. So what I'm going to do is add the rest of the icons by putting it into images. Don't forget to also input this nice search bar, right next to the add friend and DM button. There will be this input for the search bar. And what I'm going to do is hop over to globals and include this CSS for the. So once that's done, I hit save and look at that. It's going to go from that white to this color right here. Nice. Are you guys excited? Because this is essentially the front end of the Discord clone. Let's go ahead and work on a couple more functionality. With that done, I'm gonna go ahead and go to our chat view and remember the messages container that we made. And we're gonna add stuff to our messages container div, right? What I'm gonna add there is this component I'm gonna make. I'm gonna call it message form, okay? After creating that message form, I'm gonna go make the message form CSS and add the following styles. All of these styles here are divs that I'm gonna be making later inside my message form. But for now, I'm just gonna import that CSS file. Moving on. In the message form div here, line 5, let's create the form now. So I'm just gonna be writing form here. And the idea with this component, this is where on the Discord app, where you see that little box at the bottom where you're gonna type in all your beautiful messages to your friends, right? And obviously around that form is gonna be a bunch of different icons, which I'm gonna be setting up, okay? And I'm gonna call that form, in that form, I'm gonna give it a class name of chat input container. Cool, let's import the rest of the icons that I need, as well as the image from Next, where I can place the image. From there, I'm gonna make another div within the form called chat input. And then within that div, let's make the SVG container. This is where all those images are gonna go inside, okay? And in that container, what I'm gonna do is create that input box. And I'm gonna call that styles.chatInput. All right, after adding the input tag, I'm gonna go ahead and add a bunch of divs with all the rest of the icons, all in SVG containers, right? We have like the GIF, the GIF icon, the sticker icon, and the smiley icon all right here, right? And if I hit save, it looks like I have an error. I forgot when I imported the styles, I called it message from. This just should be message form. Bam. So now if I save this, this should work. And let me just full screen this. Wow, look at that. It's the exact chat box from, and you're free to type stuff, but at the moment we can't still send any messages to anyone. All right, so let's move on. Cool, so once you guys made the message form, the next part is we want to do some user authentication using MetaMask, right? So right now we want to do user authentication using MetaMask. So in order to do that, we need to use context, right? What context does, it's essentially lets us keep track of state throughout our app, right? What this does is, let's say you're not logged in and you're trying to get to a certain channel or chat, you won't be able to access it because it's going to check if you're logged in. All right, and if you're not logged in, I'm going to have to kick you out. I'm sorry, but that's what's going to have to happen. And that's just best practice. So let's go ahead and in my client folder, let's set up a context folder. Okay, so in that context folder, let's make a context.js. After making the context.js, I'm just gonna import all the necessary hooks that I'm going to use for React. Okay, and those hooks include create context, use state, use effect, and use reducer, right? So if you didn't know, use reducer stores and updates the state, kind of like use state does, except that the parameters that it takes in is a reducer function as well as the initial. All right, this is what's gonna help us update our context. Another thing I'm gonna do is import our use router, as well as importing Gun.js. All right, so Gun.js is not installed currently into our next app. So what I'm gonna do is hop over to my terminal and just add that with yarn. So I'm gonna do yarn, add gun, and there we go. All right, so now that that's installed, we can import gun safely, knowing that we have it and it's all good. Okay, cool. So once you import all of those things, I'm gonna go ahead and create our Discord context. All right, so I'm gonna say export const Discord context equals create context. So that's our Discord context. And remember that GROQ URL I told you guys to save? Well, we're gonna use it now. So paste it and put it into a string, and I'm gonna just wrap it into an array just like so. And then let's put parentheses around that as well. Right, the idea here is I'm gonna make a variable called gun. So const gun equals gun, parentheses, and it's the URL that I'm passing, right? So it should look something like this, and you should be good to go. After that, I'm gonna be setting up the reducer just like this. And one thing to note about the reducer is that it's gonna take in an initial state and a couple of actions. So if you look here in that first if statement, I have an action in my try block called clear. And if you look at the return, basically clearing out my messages, making sure that the messages array, our state that I'm keeping track of, is back to empty. All right, if you look at the next if statement, if the action that I'm trying to execute is add, right, let's return the messages, whatever we currently have and add that new message onto that array, right? So what that should look like visually is if you see on my Discord app, if someone says, hey, what's up? And then I say, not much, how's it going? Right, that's me adding a message to the messages array. All right, and that's what that action is going to do right there. And obviously this catch block right here is if there's any at all errors, right, it's just going to console log the error for me. All right, so that's me defining the actions, right, over my reducer. Okay, next I'm going to set up the Discord provider, and it's going to take in children, right? It's also going to return the Discord context provider and put the children in between that. All right, so I'm gonna write children like this, and cool. And if you notice, the value over here is empty. We're gonna leave that empty for now, but just know that whatever I pass into value, it's gonna be what I have access to globally, right? For example, it would be the room name, the current user, right? Any functions that I want access to, right? That's the whole point of us using context, so that I can access state anywhere in my app because it's global. So for now, let's leave that empty and let's move on. All right, so inside just Discord provider, at the top here, I'm just gonna add a bunch of state like this, right? And what you'll notice is these are all the things that I wanna keep track of using state. So you'll see like current account, the room name that we're in, the message text itself, right? And obviously the current user, okay? Once that's done, I'm gonna go back down here above the return, and I'm just gonna make a check if wallet is connected. This function, it's gonna be asynchronous, and all it does is literally checks if our wallet is connected. All right, we can verify it and set the current account to that. And if it's not, make sure it's an error, right? Maybe put like, please sign in or anything, something like that. But for now, we'll just console log error, right? So now I'm gonna finally use that use effect hook. And essentially what this use effect hook is doing is that whenever that component loads, right, it's gonna immediately run check if wallet is connected, right? What that means is if I go to a different page, we're gonna check if the wallet is connected. If I go to this page, I'm gonna check if the wallet is connected. That way is if you log out and then you go to a different page, you shouldn't see the stuff as if you were logged in. All right, we're gonna constantly check and validate the wallet. All right, so I'm gonna make another function here, and it's just gonna be called create user account. And this also is going to be an asynchronous function, and it's just going to do exactly what it says. If we do not have an account, right, this should help create the account and store it into Sanity. And you're going to notice something here too. Within line 42, you'll see create user account, and then we're putting in the wallet address. That's what's running, right? That's not a hook. That's just the create user account that I just made, right? Because if the wallet is connected, we want to set that current account. And if it doesn't have an account already, we're going to create that user account. So I just pasted this in. This is the connect wallet function, right? It's also asynchronous. And essentially this is me. If I click that button, this is what's going to help me connect that wallet. All right, so in the try block, it's gonna get the address, and then if that address array is the length of it is greater than 0, we're just gonna set the current user to the address that I picked. Awesome, so that should be it for now. All right, we'll get back to this. I wanna quickly go over to my API folder right here, and we don't need this hello.js that I have here, and boom. So once I delete that, let's make a new file in the API folder, and let's call this the create user.js file. All right, what we wanna do here is basically talk to Sanity. Like, if I create a user, right, I want to be able to add that user document into Sanity, right, with all the information passed in, right? So again, we also have to set up Sanity into our client. So on my terminal, I'm just gonna add @yarn add @sanity client. Amazing, cool. So once that's installed, hopping over back to create user.js. What we want to do in this create user.js file is that when I create a user by connecting my wallet for the first time, I want to make sure that a user doc is created, right? And that document that I created is just added into Sanity. Right? The cool thing about Sanity is once we create this user doc, if we were to run this function again, it's not going to make a new one because it automatically checks if it's already exists. Right? But first we have to set it up. So what I'm going to do is create this anonymous function, set up the user address like this, and over here I'm going to write const user doc equals this object. All right, so this is me in line 4. That's basically me creating the user document object, right, and passing in the user address as the ID. Now I'm just gonna make a lib folder. In this folder, I'm gonna put client.js, and this is where my Sanity client is essentially going to live. And in my client.js, I'm gonna import the Sanity client and set up the object like so. One thing that to note here is that we're going to need our project ID and as well as an access token, right? And it's best practice to not just put your access tokens and IDs or anything sensitive information that's unique to you onto the JavaScript folder itself. What you're gonna need to do is make an env file. So let's go ahead and make that our env file. All right, so once I import Sanity client, I'm gonna hop over to sanity.io. So log into Sanity right here, and you're gonna click on the project we created and hop on over to project ID. Do you see this right here? It says project ID, copy the clipboard, and in our .env file, I'm just gonna type out sanity underscore project ID underscore equals the project ID that I write. So let's go ahead and get our API token. Go ahead and check editor. And for name, we can just put client. Go ahead and hit save. All right, as you save, it's gonna generate this token here. This is what you wanna add to your env file as well. So what I'm gonna call this one is sanity token and set it equal to the token itself. Awesome. One last thing I want to do real quick is add the core's origin, right? Basically everything here are hosts that can connect to the project API. So that's going to include Vercel, right? And so I'm going to write Vercel.app like this. And one more thing is we should also add a local host here. Local host should also be able to connect to our project API. Let's go. So now that set it up, it's looking good so far. So hopping over this. Okay, so now that we stored everything we need to in our env file, let's hop over back into our Sanity client object and let's call the things we need. So if you look over here, I just pasted it in, right? We're gonna need in our Sanity client object, we need to have a key of project ID. And here, this process.env, that's where we're just gonna call anything I need. So what I'm calling from the env file is all right, and if you look down below for the key of token, that's where I'm gonna call the token that I need. All right, so I'm just gonna set that up. Now back to our create user.js, let's import that very same client at the top. Beautiful, so import client from the library. All right, so within our anonymous function underneath the user doc, let's add a nice try catch block. And basically let's wait and see and use that client. So if the user does not exist, we're gonna create the user doc or essentially whatever we passed in. And what we're passing in, as you can see, is user doc, right? And then we're gonna just send a status of successful. And of course, if there's an error of any sort, we're just gonna console log the error and just send the error as well. So this is what I mean, right? If the user doesn't exist, let's create the user doc. If not, carry on. Okay, and that's for creating a user. The other schema, if you remember, the other document that we're probably gonna have to create is the conversation one, right? And there's a little note here about whether the conversation is a DM or if it's like a group chat or something. So in our API folder, I'm gonna go ahead and create a new file. I'm gonna call that the create dm.js. Okay, so just like with the create user, here we're going to be creating the conversation document, right? So again, we need to import let's go ahead and make this anonymous function, grabbing the user address. And then in line 6, I'm going to set up our conversation document that I'm creating, right? With the type obviously going to be conversations. The ID is the user address that I got. Awesome. And there we go. Cool. If the conversation doc doesn't already exist, it's going to create it. If not, carry on. Cool. So we created the DM.js. So here I'm going to be setting up a query. I'm going to import the client at the top here. And my idea with this is that I'm going to query for all conversations that aren't DM. So what does that mean? It's going to mean any channels that are like group messages, any, let's call like servers on Discord that we're going to get. And it's going to fetch all of those conversations associated with that user. And so that's why inside this async function, if it's successful, if the promise is successful, we're going to fetch all of those conversations that aren't DMs, right? And when we query them, we'll also get the room ID, the room name, and their avatar. Okay. After that, I'm also going to get DM. So I'm going to create a file called getDMs.js. And this is going to be different than channels because in this one, I'm going to be querying for all the conversations that are DMs, right? These are the personal messages, right? My direct messages with Kaz, my direct messages with David, right? So that's what I'm going to set up here. And again, set up that same anonymous asynchronous function down, right? It's going to have the same try catch block, right? If successful, get me all those direct messages. And if not, send me an error. One more thing that I want to add to this file. Because one thing to note is that if it's a conversation, if it's a channel that I clicked into, the properties of that will be different. If it's a channel, the properties of that document are avatar, name, and ID, right? If it's just a conversation, like a personal message between users, right? I don't want to have the properties of avatar, name, and ID. What I'm going to do in line 15 is get that response, right? Map through that response. And for every item in that response, let's convert avatar to just image, name to name, and ID to wallet address. And specifically, I think I mean room name to name. Okay, and once that's successful, we'll just send a status of 200. And that's the only difference with that, and we should be good to go. Cool. One of the last things I'm going to do is just make another file called getCurrentUser. This one is going to get the current user from Sanity, and I'm going to set it up just like how we did with getChannels. All right, so that means importing the client once again, making this asynchronous function, and inside the asynchronous function, setting up a query that's going to look for users, right? And the wallet address. Awesome. So that's it. So there we go. I set up that. Don't forget to add the try catch block to fetch that user if it's, and also the catch with that. Okay, so it looks like that's all the functions we have for Sanity. Now that that's set up, we can finally get back to our context.js. And if you're still watching this video, go ahead and drop a like down below, right? You made it this far. So I'm going to be hopping over back to context.js and let's go finish out our create user function. So in my create user function, if I'm not logged in, I'm gonna set the edge case right there. If that doesn't exist, we're just gonna return. And after that, I'm gonna go set up this try catch, right? And if the promise is successful, right, we're gonna set up the user address to be the user address that we have. Okay, and here I'm actually gonna have another try catch within the first. All right, this time, if you look, I'm gonna be making a fetch call to where, right? I'm gonna be making a fetch call to the next public API URL, right? And that's going to be coming from my env file, which isn't really set up yet. So let's just do that. So in my env file, I'm going to write next public API URL, and let's just set this to localhost 3000/API. Awesome, right? So what essentially this is doing is letting us create the user, right? And posting it, right? Posting it to where? To Sanity. Right? We set up that function earlier to create the user under our API folder. Once we create a user account, what this is going to do is post that user document into Sanity as well. Right? And then again, right underneath that nested try, I'm going to add another try, but this is also going to post all of the DMs, right? It's going to create the DM document for us. And that's going to go into Sanity as well. Okay, just so to quickly recap. So now that that's all set up, when we log into MetaMask for the first time, a user is created. Right? Once that user is created, it's going to create a document with all the information passed in, and it's going to post that document onto our Sanity database. Okay, and the next thing we have to do is remember that value. Remember in our Discord context provider where I said we're going to leave the value empty for now. We're going to add stuff to it. I'm going to add all these values into here, right? We have the current account, the room name, the message text, the state, the gun, the connect wallet user, and the current user. Many more. Everything I put here is going to be accessible to me globally anywhere in my app. All right, so let's take advantage of that. That's exactly why we use context here. So let's go ahead and do that. So let's get back to our chat header, right? And above our chat header, let's import anything we need to use context, which is just going to be import use context and actually our Discord context itself. Cool. So let's utilize use context in line 17. And I'm just going to take these states that I want to keep track of right now, which is just the room name, the current account, and the connect wallet function. Okay, so I'm going to pass in the room name so in line 22. And then you're going to see something here. Connected wallet is actually great, right? Even though it says over here, if I highlight styles.connected wallet, because it's a different thing, right? The styles.connect wallet or styles.connected wallet is just, that is what it is. It's just a CSS class name, right? The connect wallet that I'm getting from use context is the state that I passed in. It's the function that's going to actually connect my wallet to the account. So what I'm going to do is in that same div, let's add an on click, right? That's going to run the connect wallet when I click this button. All right, so let's demo that right now. Of course, it doesn't work the first time. All right, we get an error of cannot destructure property room name. And let's take a look. Oh, I see. Okay, I'm just taking a look at context. All right, room name is set up over there. Okay, I think one thing I need to do is go to your underscore app.js and let's just wrap the main component around with our Discord provider. All right, so I'm going to import that Discord provider and import use router. Okay, I'm just gonna clean this up a bit and there we go. So now if I hit save, let's take a look now. Okay, now it just says initial state is not defined. And if I look at the error there, oh, my bad guys. Let me just insert the initial state. So I forgot in my context.js, right? We also have to define the initial state, which was I had as, right? And it's that messages array. So up over here, I'm just gonna say the const initial state equals the object messages, and it's just gonna be the value of an empty array. So now when I save, let's go. Right, cool. So then it's gonna prompt me to connect my wallet. I'll go ahead and click it. I click next and voila, I am logged in, right? And my wallet address is up there. We don't need to use the static dummy address any longer. All right, cool. So this is looking good, guys. I'm excited. Let's move on. Now that we set up user authentication, all of our context, we can go ahead and let's just go ahead and get the convo lists from Sanity, right? So whenever you log in with your account, you should have your own unique conversations going on, right? Your own unique channels, your own unique personal messages, your own unique DM, right? So right now, if you look at the app, we just have the static ones that we made. You know, I have my team and my direct messages and just like random stuff here in the channel. So let's actually make my dynamic, unique conversations list. But before we get into that, let's just go set up a couple things. Over here, let's finish out the create user account, and in the parameters let's just write this user address equals current account. Awesome. And then after we look into our Sanity, once we finally log in with our wallet, you're going to see something called unnamed as the user document, right? This unnamed thing here is what we created when we first connected our wallet. Right over here is the wallet address that I have, and again, just no profile image set up. So we can actually set that up all through Sanity, which is nice. So in here, I'm just going to name this, all right, I'm impersonating Kazi today, just like how I'm taking over his YouTube channel. Awesome, right? There's the profile image. It pops up nicely over there. So now this user is named Kazi with this wallet address and this nice profile picture. Okay, cool. Let's hop back over to here, and in our conversations, if you remember, we also created a conversations document when we connected our wallet, right? And for this time, this one's going to be called Untitled, right? And in here, we don't have any like rooms or conversations associated with the user just yet, but we can now set it up right here. So here, this is also the user reference that I was talking about earlier, and that's where we can reference any of the users involved, right? So right now, the only user we have is Kazi, and that's okay. Okay, hopping back into the code here, we're going to be working on the sidebar. So if you remember, we have a bunch of dummy channels like so. We have the general, the random, the chill, and build space, right? These are static, right? This is going to show up regardless of who logs in, right? And one of the first things we're going to do is in the sidebar component itself in here in line 38, I'm going to be making a use effect. In that use effect, I'm going to set up a try catch block. And in that try block, I'm going to be making an API call, right? That's going to get all the channels. Okay, and once I get that response.json data back and I store it in a variable called data here, I'm going to set my state and set channels to that array of objects. Yeah, of course, I'm going to be making that API call, but there's no real conversations going on. So once I have my data and I set channels with it, there's not going to be any conversations going. So let's create them just like we set up Kazi's. Let's create a conversation right now. I'm going to be calling this one build space. Okay, and the room ID, I'm just going to call it B space. And just drag this image I have of their very nice unicorn logo. All right, once that's done, the document is published. Let's also set up another really cool organization. Let's call them Cover Programmer and just write CP as the room ID. And we'll have our CP logo with Kazi's beautiful face. There it is. And of course, we don't check that this is a DM because this is a channel, right? Because remember the way we handle the state, it's going to be a little different. Cool. So we're going to get this error real quick because of the invalid source prop. Let's let's just take a look. In order to fix this error, I'm gonna go ahead and go to next.config.js, just like so, add in this images and add this domain here. And also, of course, add in the cdn sanity.io. All right, these are all the things that you need. So just copy that, like what I have here, and I'm just gonna restart my server. All right, now that my server's, hey, let's go. All right, I can see everything up here as I draw this arrow. All right, I can click on CP. The URL is still dynamic because I set that up before. All right, and I can also talk to build space right here. So what's up, build space? Cool. So yeah, you can just click around, all the CSS and styling is working. You can hover over it, looks really nice. All right, and now let's head over to our conversations list. And I essentially wanna do the same thing with our direct messages, right? So as before, we have dummy channels, right? If I highlight this, this is dummy channels. We don't need that anymore. We're gonna be just pulling from our Sanity database. Awesome. So I'm just gonna erase that, our use state to an empty array so that even if we don't have anything, we are still able to map it. We're not gonna get any reading map of undefined errors. Cool. So literally just copy paste that same use effect, except this time it should be get DMs, right? And if you're gonna see, the DMs is gonna get pulled Kazi because that's the only user involved right now. Awesome. So if you ever want to populate your direct messages, just create a bunch of user documents with different people, and that's what's going to populate in your direct messages. So that's how you pull the convo list from Sanity. Don't forget, guys, this is an amazing, sick project. Feel free to customize it, make it feel like your own. Add the people, your favorite people, add me, add Frankie, add Kazi. Let's go. Oh, and one more thing I forgot to do was actually fill in that change URL function inside DM card so that when I do click Kazi, it has that custom URL link here with this arrow. It says Kazi. Nice. So I can click on build space, cloud programmer, Kazi, and the URL, the page itself is going to change. All right, so after you're done being able to pull the convo list from Sanity, let's go dive into our message form. And in the message form component, I'm going to import our context here. So I'm going to import use context and import Discord context as well. And now I'll actually use that hook here and set it up. So in line 12, I'm going to be pulling a bunch of different variables from our Discord context, that being this message placeholder and among other things. Cool. So now that my context is set up, I'm going to write a function called send message. This function is going to run every time I hit enter. I should send the message that I typed in. So what I want to do is add this event prevent default. And if the message text is empty, we'll just return and do nothing. Okay, once that's done, go down into the input here and let's add a couple more attributes to this, such as giving it a value equal to the message text attribute called disabled and set it to current account.name, and this on change right here so that every time I make a change to the input, we're going to be updating our set message text state to be what I typed. And of course, we'll have the placeholder. Cool. So go back to your send message function, and here I'm going to make a variable called messagesRef. All this does is gets a reference to the room name using Gun.js, right? And room name being the conversation that I clicked. Okay, so next I'm going to make an object called new message, and that new message object is going to have a couple of things like sender, which is going to be set to the current user.name, avatar, which is going to have the avatar of the current user, and of course if there is no avatar, we're just going to set it to this random one here. Okay, the most important thing that we need from this new message is actually in the content key. We want the message text, right? And we want to use .trim because we want to remove the white spaces at the beginning and end of it so we can clean it up a bit, and just some bonus keys right here for created at, which is going to keep track of when the message was created at. Cool. Okay. Moving into context.js, what I want to do is just add another use effect into my context.js file. So in this use effect, if there is no current user, we're just going to return. If there is, I want to do this try catch block, right? Essentially with this try catch block, I'm going to be making a fetch call to our API, and I'm going to be getting the current user's data, right? And if it's successful, I want to set that into this data variable. And once that's successful, I'm going to get the response.json and wait for that to return and set it equal to data and update my set current user state with that data. Of course, when we're working with functions, we have to make sure that the function itself is asynchronous. So I'm going to add the async at the top of this anonymous function, and we should be good to go. Okay. Then I'm going to add the current account into the dependency module down here at 47. And if you didn't know, if you put anything to this dependency module, what it's going to do is if the current account changes, we're going to run the use effect all over again, right? So if for whatever reason the current account changed, it's going to run the if statement. It's going to check if there is a current account, if it's an actual truthy value, and if it does exist, right, we're going to do the try catch block that we have set up here. So essentially, every time I change the current account, it's gonna run and get that user data. Okay, I'm gonna add another use effect over here. And in this use effect, I'm gonna set it in the dependency to router.query. Okay, and in here, I'm gonna set up a couple things and set a bunch of state. Essentially what we wanna do this is that we're gonna query the room that is clicked and set that as the room name. After that, we're gonna use dispatch to run the clear action, right, which is gonna clear the current data. And after we clear the current data, we'll set the placeholder in the input to say message, whoever we clicked. All right. And of course, whenever you're switching messages, that input box should be empty, right? If I type hello and I'm messaging Clever Programmer and I switch to build space, that input should be empty. It shouldn't be a hello on there still. So I'm going to set the message to empty as well. Cool. So over here in line 56, I'm going to be creating another function. I want to create a function called get message. All right. It's going to do exactly what it sounds like in the get messages function. I'm going to be querying for 3 things and storing them into the variables right here. I'm going to be querying the name and the room ID. I'm also setting up my messages ref again and getting all the messages in reference to, okay? After I set up those variables, I'm actually going to map through the messages and I'm going to add all of this data onto here. All right, I'm going to add who the sender is, the content, the avatar, the created at, and message ID. Okay, once I set up those variables, I want to go down in line 61 and just type in messagesref.map.once. What this is going to do is essentially just map through the messages ref. And after it maps through the messages ref, what I'm going to do is run the dispatch and run the add action, which is going to add this data down. Right, it's going to add who the sender is, what the message content is, set the message avatar, the created at, and the message ID. So I'm just going to write test. Oh, look at that. All right, it actually that's not supposed to happen. Right, when I wrote test and I press send, it actually just reset the page. So I'm just going to go ahead and check my message form, and this event prevent default should be stopping that refresh. Oh, there we go. I forgot. There we go. So what I need to do to fix that error of sending a message and the whole thing refreshing itself, we need to remember to put an on submit onto the form. Why? Because whenever you press enter with a form, it's actually going to refresh your whole page. And when you're using a bunch of state like that, you don't necessarily want to do that because it's going to reset. So what we're going to do here is set up so that on submit, we're going to send the message, right? And we're going to be passing in the event, right? And this is where the event is coming from. So now with that set up, right, when we pass down the event, the event.prevent default will actually just prevent the default action, which is the refresh of the page. So understanding what line 23 does is going to be really helpful. Okay, so I'm gonna hit save and type it in. All right, I wrote hi. Cool. So it's not refreshing, but I'm also just not seeing any of the messages just yet, but it is going somewhere. But it does look like it's going somewhere. All right, so I'm just gonna take a look at the chat view component, and in the chat view component, let's just finally add our context. So again, use context and Discord context. And in line 8, I'm just going to be grabbing the state from our Discord context here. After that, I'm going to be creating a function called formatted messages. Right? Essentially what this function is going to do, it's going to get all the messages from the state. It's going to filter them, right, using .filter. And within that filter, only bring back the ones that belong. And I'm going to use .filter. And based on where they belong, let's just return the ones that are in the selected channel, right? Because there's going to be a bunch of messages in our state. I only want the messages, let's say, of build space if I click build space. And I only want the messages of the ones from Clever Programmer if I click Clever Programmer. All right, and what that would look like is something like this. Okay, and I'm now realizing we also still need to work on the messages container. All right, so let's hop over to the chat view. We want to start working on this. All right, so in the messages container, here we're going to take the formatted messages array function, and then that's going to return. And after it returns that array, we want to map through it. All right, so it's only going to contain the messages that are relevant to the room. Okay, and for each message in that array, I want to create a message card. In your components folder, let's just create a new file, call it message card.js. Okay, set up the message card component, and in the chat view, let's just import the component here. Okay, and I'm just gonna paste that message card component like so. All right, and for every message card component that we make, I want to pass down key and the rest of these props like the avatar, the sender, a timestamp, and the content. Okay, next step, I'm going to add the message card CSS, and it's going to include the styles right here. Awesome. And moving on, for the message card, let's add those divs with the styles that we set up. So I'm going to make a div called message card, and within that, message avatar container. If you guys could imagine the code really quickly, when you write into Discord, every time you send a message on Discord, your profile picture should appear to the left of what you wrote. And if someone replies to you, their profile picture should appear to the left of what they wrote. So this is how the divs are going to be set up in the message card component. All right, so let's just use the next image and insert that inside the container. And up here, you'll notice I added the image, the next image up here, the import statement for the next image. And then let's just destructure those props that we passed down so that we can use them. And then in between our message avatar container, let's actually insert that image and pass in the avatar and the sender as the alt. Okay, cool. And then in another div, still inside the message card, I want this div for the message details, right? The information for the sender, small timestamp as well. And the most important part, the content of the message itself. Okay. One thing I forgot to do is really quick. Let's go over to our context.js and add the /gun. Once the /gun is there, we can go ahead and erase this message ref. After you add the /gun in this use effect here in context.js, we also need to be able to get message. All right, we need to put get messages into that use effect so that it runs when the component mounts. Awesome. All right, so the only error should see now is that styles is not defined in my message card. So if I look at my message card really quickly, I see. We forgot to import the styles for the message card. So I'm gonna quickly do that. Import styles from message card module. Boom, and I hit save, and there we go, there it is. And there we go, there's all the messages that I wrote earlier. Hi, hello, message, hello, all of that stuff. All right, let me just go ahead and full screen this app. I'm gonna click on Clever Programmer. What's up, CP fam? Is this working? Let's go. There it is, right? I can head over to a different conversation. I can head over to my direct messages. I can say, hello, decentralized app. Are you with me, right? And there it is, folks, our decentralized chat app, our Discord clone. I hope you guys enjoyed. This is sick. Isn't this awesome? Cool. So hopefully you guys made it to the end of the video. And if you did, leave a comment down below and send us your projects. I'd love to see what you guys made if you were able to make it. Peace. All right, and the only thing we have to do now, guys, is let's deploy this project to Vercel. So what I'm gonna do right now is go to my terminal and type in Vercel, and would you look at that? It's building. It's just a couple more seconds till we have a full project. And bam, do you see that link to deploy to production? Let's copy this link, and I'm gonna hop back into my window and paste it right here. Oh, let's go. Good morning, test. I'm about to say, yo, we are live, boys. And that's it. Now that you deployed the app, this app is online. You guys have your very own decentralized Discord clone. And not only that, you guys learned a little bit about Gun.js as well as practicing using Sanity. So a lot of valuable skills here. I encourage you guys to make it your own. You know, talk to whoever you want, customize it. This is your app. So if you guys made it to the end of this video, don't forget to drop a like, you know, help me save my job if you liked me explaining this code. And be sure to watch our Twitter clone. It's gonna be up here, right here. Watch our Twitter clone, add this to portfolio. I'll see you guys next time.